Hello YouTube, Robin Hood Bricks here, and today we're going to place the old fishing store. That's set 21310. So we're actually starting off this video with a bit of shaky freehand, just because I want to show you a few things regarding the placement of this set. So it's the old fishing store, the ideas set 21310, and I'm sure you're all very familiar with it, in that it's a very fantastic and popular set with this really sort of old ramshackle roof and spire viewing platform and all this decking and so on. I mean, it's a real favourite, and it's built into the rocks, which makes it very appropriate for including on my beach. Now, the bit of beach I've done already is over here, and it's blank. I haven't finished it. I haven't even started sort of sculpting it or anything yet. But what I was planning to do was have probably one building at one end, have the hidden side shrimp shack in the middle, and then have this great big building as a kind of a bookend on the far end near our two bridges. And I thought that would be rather good. And I think I'm going to continue with that, but I do have a bit of an issue. Now, the issue is that we've got the ground floor door on this side and a lot of windows and a lot of interest, the bottom step and so on, leading up to the decking on this side, which is much higher. And then we've got a couple of windows. We've got a lot of blank wall as well, and a lot of blank wall there and a lot of blank wall there. So really, this is not the most attractive side of the build. I would say that the front is obviously the best, but then the second best is that side. So that's arguably the two sides I want to see most. Not only that, but if you look at where we're trying to place it, we've actually got this raised table, which is the table for the height of the main level of the city, and we've got this lower table being the height of sea level. And it'd be very useful if we could use these stairs to actually take us from the low level up to the high level. So I think you can probably see what we're going to have to do already, and that's mirror this build in its entirety. So we've got the bottom of the steps at this end, at the front, and we've got the most interesting view from this sort of diagonal here. And then the boring side would be right over here, right into the rocks, right into the edge of the bridge. And then this bit of protruding table would actually be in this unused area at the back, rather than preventing this from getting any closer. So, I don't know if that makes any sense. Hopefully it does. But if you just imagine the mirror image of this building as it is currently standing, and if I put it about here, then this main building will be roughly the same, but with the door on this side, and this big tower would kind of be here, right next to the bridges. And then the steps would be at the lowest here and go all the way up to here, where they'd actually link up with this top level. Fantastic. So that means I've got to basically take apart this whole set and rebuild it in a mirror image, which doesn't sound that bad, but this is a huge set with loads and loads of fiddly little pieces, and building it from instructions in mirror is quite a challenge, not to be done very quickly anyway. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to it, if I'm honest with you. Anyway, that's what we're going to have to do if we want a perfect city. So, wish me luck. Right, so we're down on the build desk now. So I can get started. And I suppose the first question, or the first bit, is whether I actually need to mirror this. Because if it was mirrored, obviously the dark grey corner would be there and the black corner would be there. But otherwise, this thing's symmetrical. So I don't think I'll bother, because it's just a waste of time to go for such a minor difference when it's, you know, deliberately patterned to look haphazard, so I don't think there's any need. So that's the first bit done. Second bit. Okay, here goes. Okay, that's a very simple part of it done. I'm dreading doing the next bit, to be honest. Let's do the roof. And now the roof is done. It looks strangely like before, but it is mirrored, I can assure you. And I've stopped doing it on the speed build just because A, it's quite hot under these lights that I use to make sure the picture comes out good for you. And also because it's quite tricky working with a camera right in between your line of sight and your hands, especially when doing something as fiddly as this. Now, when I did this, I had to actually refer back to the instructions as well, just because by the time you've sort of removed, say, half of these tiles in order to mirror the second half onto the place that you've just vacated, you just can't remember where they all went to put the first lot back on again. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to do the more complicated bits with the aid of the original instructions and just keep going piece by piece. But so I've got the tower done, I've got the roof done. It's just getting worse and worse, isn't it? And I've got to do part of the building. Horror. Well, I'm sure it'll be worth it. Phew, this is hard going. I've broken the whole building into these sub-assemblies, not along any specific lines as such, just where it broke, just so I could make the problem a little bit smaller. As they say, you can't eat an elephant in one go, but you can eat it one bite at a time. So that's the way I'm going. Another one, and another one. So they're all reversed. And now I need to bite off another chunk of elephant and get this done as well. One interesting thing while I did all this was that a 1x1 round tile in brown broke, weirdly. I mean, they don't usually snap in half like that. I know there's stories of brown bricks being a bit more fragile than others, but it's a very odd one to break. Right, I think I'm going to take a break and come back to this. Okay, now everything has been reversed, believe it or not. So this is the last bit that was on the base plate, and I've taken the opportunity of moving on to a different combination of base plates than it was on initially. Obviously, before it was centered on 32 by 32 base plate as per the original set, but now I've wanted to put it in between a few base plates because I want it to fit perfectly in that corner against the bridge, against the beach, and against that table. And therefore, I've used this strange combination. So this is essentially the end of the beach, and the beach continuing off that way. This is the water in front of the beach going off that way as well. And then this is temporary. This 32 by 16 base plate represents the bit of blue base plate that's underneath the bridge already. So as long as I've measured it correctly, fingers crossed, this should just peel off this front one and then fit right in place at the end of my current setup. If I've done it wrong, then I'm going to have to sort of peel off all these base plates and do it again. But yeah, actually it's a good point. I might go and try and put this in the Lego room first just to measure up before I start attaching anything else. Well, I'm glad I brought it up because this job is not as simple as I first thought. Obviously, everything just gets a lot more difficult when it comes to actually putting it into action than what you planned. But what I was going to do was take this off this green base that's sort of slim around the back here and this half-sized blue one and put it straight onto this full-size blue one and this sliver of grey crossroad plate that will be completely concealed, and therefore have this building right up to the red and black support bricks that are supporting the railway line. But I realised that if I'm going to have a support structure underneath this base plate over here and then have this building distinct from that, then it's not going to mesh very well. It's not going to join. It's not going to be very strong. Add to that, I've had to push back this table that was coming up to about here back that way, which is fine because I've got a bit of room in that part of the Lego room, but that's left this unsupported as well. So essentially, I think what I'm going to have to do is incorporate the support structure type bricks in the same way that I have underneath all my other beach and boardwalk areas into this part of the building. So basically, this side and this side remain intact, but this side and this side will take off the railings, integrate it fully with the support structure, and then put the railings back on. And then what it should mean is that we've got a completely built-in old fishing store that's very strong and is helping to hold up the surrounding area. And then all I'll need to do is fill in a very small gap in between the edge of this and the end of our cliffs that are already there, so it's a seamless join. That way we'll have the longest beach possible by pushing this building right up to there. I think this is going to take longer than I first thought. So in order to get better access, I've actually taken up that small section of straight rail and the curved rail, and I've performed some surgery on the end of the bridge just to remove two of the girders and pull away these ends slightly, just so I can remove those pieces cleanly, because then I think I can do a much better job of integrating this whole section with that whole section and the new support that's going to be underneath here. So unfortunately, it's like anything, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But I think the next stage is to take this off those 2 temporary base plates and transfer it onto there, and then we'll be able to see exactly what we're doing. So I appreciate this is getting quite complicated now, but do try and keep up. So I've put in one of the spare pieces of wood that I had that are from an old set of drawers that I've also used underneath other parts of the beach boardwalk to support this base plate and this base plate. Then we've got this being the interior of the building that I'm going to incorporate with the cliffs. And I'm going to do that roughly by adding a normal plate into the structure of the building that's kind of underneath the decking, if you will, and have that there and another one there, and that will stick out from the side. And then when I get that thin base plate that was under the railway track back, then you'll have, when it's fully supported underneath, a completely seamless join between this part of our old fishing store and the grass areas and the train track areas. So clearly I need to do a lot more support underneath here, here and here to a degree, but you can already see now that it's starting to become more seamless, both on this level, which will need filling in with some rock pieces here, but very seamless around this area. So there is a master plan, we'll get there eventually, and then we can build all the bits of building that we've reversed back onto all of this. And there's a close-up from a lower angle, so you can see that the rock face behind the bridges is just going to be able to be blended seamlessly into the front of the old fishing store, and then the waves will be lashing up against the steps. Brilliant. So today I've used a combination of the newer, more efficient technique using wood and the older technique that I used to use much more with the supporting large bricks. But fortunately I've got quite a lot of these from all those brick hauls when I was buying them cheaply. So now all those structural pieces are in place. You can see this base plate is incredibly firm, not moving at all. These two are as well on the wood. And that just leaves us to put down a 16 by 16. A 16 by 8 there, and two more here, which basically mean I can put the railway track back. There'll be a green sort of edge on the outside of the sort of fence pieces, and then it'll be turning to grey when it moves into this bit, which will also be a grey base plate. So hopefully that'll all be seamless and won't need much in the way of bricks to disguise these joins, which look a bit odd at the moment. But now I'm finally in a position where I can actually put back the mirrored old fishing store. At last! Right, so I've pushed these down now, and you can see they're absolutely solid. I can't get any movement out of those, pushing really hard. But as soon as I've done it, I realise I'm going to have to take these two probably back off, just to give me enough access to this small gap between the old fishing store and the cliff face, just so I can fill in some more rock pieces and maybe an extra cave, just to make that edge brilliant. And there's the completed rock face. It's looking pretty good. There's a tiny bit of tidying up to do around here, but I'm going to need to have the bricks of the building to know exactly where to put those. But I've got another seaweed piece, some olive green pieces, lots of little splashes and so on. And the sort of hint of a cave in here. So I quite like that. So now I think I can put the train track back and then start bringing up the building pieces from my desk downstairs and see if we can put this jigsaw back together. That's the railway track back on, thank goodness. And now I've just got a complicated 3D jigsaw puzzle to do. I've already put that piece in, which is the back wall, which would normally open on hinge pieces, which clearly won't now because it's kind of built into the rock face, but that doesn't matter. You can still lift the roof off and have a peer inside. And then we can have some of the fencing. And you can see now it's just slightly higher than the actual ground level when it's on the top level, which is really quite pleasing. And I'm going to have to put obviously a gap in this so people can come up these stairs, go around the outside of the building and then through a gap somewhere to get to this area. But I won't do that yet because I don't know exactly where I want it. And then I can just put in other bits of the jigsaw. There's one. I think that one goes there. And then that there. So you can start to see it sort of building back up quite quickly. As long as I've done it all right. I'm not pushing these down firmly yet because I don't know exactly if I've got them all right. And another weird thing happened. I broke another 1x1 brown round tile, which is rather odd. That's never happened to me before, and it's happened twice in taking this apart and rebuilding it. Very strange. Right, I'm going to put together this puzzle and then show you the finished product. Well, I must have done well with my reversing of all the sub-assemblies because that's all gone together quite well. Obviously, I've still got the roof to add, but you can see how it's now coming together, built right into the rock face. And interestingly enough, the top half of the swinging back wall still opens above our new ground level. So that's quite pleasing. I didn't realise it was going to do that. I actually forgot that it worked like that in two sections. So that's a bonus as well. But you can always get in through the top anyway. So yeah, I'm really happy with how that's working. It's clearly so integrated with the cliff now that it looks a lot more natural. I mean, if I just put this on its normal 32 by 32 base plate right up against the cliff, it would have looked like a separate set and quite detached. But as it is, it looks very organic, I think. Great. Right, I better go and get the roof. And the back's really neat as well now. You can see this raised walkway area is only a couple of plate heights higher than the ground level at the top, which makes it ideal. And if I just replace the 8 long with a 4 long tile there and make a temporary gap in the back, you can see how somebody walking along here could easily get out onto this area, which I also have plans for, but I'm not going to let you know just yet. Right, and there is the final scene. Very happy with that indeed. It looks completely built in. We've got all the base plates right up to the very back edge of this, so there's no sort of weird gap between it and whatever's next. We've managed to maintain a strip of green grass down this side, alongside the railway track, which is very pleasing indeed. We've got a nice new rock area which finishes the cliff into this stairway. And most importantly of all, we've got a bookend for the beach. So now it should be relatively easy to join this end all the way to the other end that we've already done and start putting some good fun stuff in there as well. I'm really happy with it. What do you think? Now, since this is a city update, I have to introduce a vehicle as part of my New Year's resolution. So here is set 60084, which is the racing bike transporter. Now, the original set comes with one bike on the back of the truck and one bike on a trailer. But because I've got so many cars in my city, or will have, I think it's a bit of a waste of space. So I just did some slight modifications so the truck can carry both bikes side by side on the back of the truck. So I'll add that to my city's roads right now. That's that done. Well, that's been a very successful Lego session. I'm really happy with that. You never know how things are going to turn out, and you hope they'll look good when your plans come to fruition. And I'm very happy to say in this case that, if anything, they've exceeded my expectations. So really, really happy. It's almost like I planned it. So as always, thank you very much for watching. It is appreciated. Do remember to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more awesome LEGO videos. Next Monday, we'll be continuing with Modular Mondays. I think there's 2 more parts for that. And then I'm also thinking of doing some design videos with regard to Modular Mondays, just to sort of show some of the process that I went through in designing Fast Food Corner. So do let me know if that's of interest to you, because I want to make sure that there's a sufficient audience for it, that they're actually interested in it before I go ahead. And then next Friday, we'll have another city update where I guess we'll do more stuff on and around the beach. See you then!